Hello and welcome to another episode of Found It, Fetched It. This week we want to talk about, let's be honest, about force-free. When you look at the industry, there seems to be a complete misunderstanding almost about what force-free actually means. So what Claire and I are going to do today is talk about our pups, Arthur and Jeannie, what it was like as they have progressed to different parts of being a pup, and why the whole concept of force-free cannot and does not even exist. Claire, before we get into this, how are you today, my love?
Hello, Joe. Yeah, I'm really well. It's been a bit Baltic teaching on the field today, a little bit chilly, which has come as a bit of surprise. I feel like the weather is throwing us everything.
Yeah, between shall we have floods in Cardiff and shall we have ice and death in Britain, it seems for me like I don't know which way to turn.
Exactly.
We want to talk about this because this whole misconception never goes away, and we want our members, our listeners, to understand that the whole concept of force free cannot even be true because of what you have to do from the minute a pup is born. So let's talk about, even before they get to us, a breeder controls the situation, doesn't it?
Yep. And the mum also controls the situation with her puppies. She'll tell them when to knock it off if they're being inappropriate or if she wants a break from them. Puppies are not born and then don't experience any sort of rules and boundaries before they come to their home. They do from day one. They are experiencing being set rules and boundaries when they're in the litter with the other litter mates and by the mum. And of course, the things that the breeder are doing as well with the dogs. When they're chipped, that's just got on with. If the breeder is doing the first sets of vaccinations, they're having to be handled. Yeah, I think we can really underestimate what puppies get used to from the day that they're born before, in them first 8 weeks, before they even come to us.
Yeah, because the reality of it is, a certain amount of stress starts even in the minute that they are born, in the fact that they have to be born. And then their mum has to lick them to death and they don't know what's going on. They have to breathe for the first time. There is so much going on around them, but their bodies and their minds, to a certain extent, are not prepared for that because they've never been through it. But they go through it quite happily in relation to their entire life, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do. And I think if we were to always, with puppies, start as we mean to go on, we would avoid a lot of the behavioural problems that people do actually come across, especially when you're bringing that puppy home. If you're starting as you mean to go on, you're putting those rules and boundaries in, you're getting the doggies to be handled, you're doing all the things you've got to do with them. And just through taking them out and doing appropriate socialization and habituation, we are putting them through little bits of stress already when we're going through all of those things with the puppies. And then they hit adolescence, and we have to again reinforce the rules and boundaries and show them right from wrong and help them learn how to cope with and deal with things in their life. And if we don't do this, we can very easily end up with dogs that don't understand rules and boundaries, that potentially have what would be classed as very inappropriate behaviors or anxiety or fear-based aggression and things. There are just so many things that can go wrong if we do not give them the right education.
And let's make it clear from the start and let's draw a line in the sand, because I'm sure lots of people listening to this want us to make our position. We don't believe in any harsh or abusive behaviour towards our dogs. However, we do believe in constructive correction where we say, no, so that the dog knows and learns as it should from us. We are there to guide them the difference between right and wrong.
Yes, absolutely. This is the thing, and I think this is where, what's that saying? Going to throw the baby out with the bathwater or something like that, isn't it? And we can just, I think people have become very frightened of using words that don't mean something bad because it comes across a certain way. It's like the word punishment. People are very frightened to use the word punishment now without actually using it in a way of what its definition is. And the word aversive has become very frowned upon, yet an aversive is just to create a dislike for something, essentially. And I think this is where things have really got out of control because people don't feel they can even say the words they want to say. It's like when I say that I'm giving my dog a command. A command isn't a bad word. And people are now, no, we can't say command. And that's ridiculous because it's not optional. I am telling the dog it's got to do it, but a command doesn't mean that I'm being abusive or harsh with the dog. I'm just saying, this is what I'm asking you to do, but actually it's not negotiable. You actually need to do it. And it might be because it's for a safety reason that they have to do it. It could be because they're in competition. It's not optional not to do it. There's 1,000 reasons why things are not optional. Also, just because we can't have dogs making poor decisions and doing things that are potentially dangerous.
Yeah. And let's be honest, right? I looked up the definition of force free. And force free is a method of teaching dogs that focuses on rewarding the behaviours you want rather than punishing the ones you do not. We're all in agreement up to that point, yeah? We want to reward behaviours rather than punishing. Of course we do, that's what training is about. But then it goes mad. In theory, it means using no physical pressure, no verbal corrections, and no moments of interruption that could feel aversive to the dog. It sits on the idea that dogs learn best through positive reinforcement and gentle guidance. Now, when Arthur, our delightful, is eating the cork doormat because he's in that mood, what part of force free allows me to say to him, you really shouldn't be eating that, my love. It's not going to help your stomach. And it's also my effing doormat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and this is the thing, we absolutely know that reward-based training is the way to build behaviors and it's the best way to get more of those behaviors and it's how you should teach a dog behavior. I don't believe you should be punishing a dog for doing something that it doesn't understand. If my dog doesn't know what the recall is, I can't punish the dog for not recalling if I haven't taught it to recall. And I think so there's this thing of being fair to the dog. But if you want to stop a behavior, this only can happen. You can only stop a behavior by communicating to the dog that behavior is no longer on the table. And I just think it's crazy to say that you can't interrupt that behavior or you can't say no to the dog. And actually, we can't speak English to the dog. We can't sit there and have that conversation like you would with a, well, I don't think even some children you can have that conversation with. But you can't sit there and say, okay, do you not understand that if you eat, this is going to be bad for you? You can't have that conversation with a dog. You just have to tell the dog you can't do that. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and whilst I see him do this, I've got to say, ah, come on now, away from that, and I've got to take it off him and make sure he can't eat any more of it because I'm looking after his welfare. But do you think the term is being stretched? Some people are using it to suggest you should never stop a dog from doing something unsafe or unhelpful. You should never interrupt their choices and never apply any form of boundary. And this is where, like, the real life and the ideals that we are sort of force-fed online are drifting apart, aren't they?
Yeah, if look, listen, I honestly believe that it's just been taken too far by extremists. That's what I believe. I think that so I have a lot of trainers train with me, and I think labels become very dangerous. This is what I believe. And I think that most of the trainers who train their dogs with me are reward based. That's the way they go. And maybe that some of them might say that they're force free, but I know that they're not because they train their dogs with me and they're happy with what I do. And I would never call myself force free. However, I don't ever use anything abusive or harsh. And I always for me, it's all about the dog's experience and the owner and handler's experience as well. But I know that I'm more on the same page as some of the trainers that do call themselves force free than they labels would allow them to say, because they train with me and they believe in what I teach. Does that make sense, Joe? So
Yeah,
it is that the words are being taken out of context.
but also, like you said, it is extreme, and then that extreme behavior of the few is almost muddying the water because you've got me and you and all the other experts and pretty much most of our group saying, well, we can't say we're force free. We can say we're kind as heck, but we can't say we're force free because we use a slip lead or because we say, when the dog's about to counter surf. Because we do those things, apparently that is really wrong. And I think that's the point of frustration in my position that I'm starting to see now is the fact that we have, again, more and more new members joining us. We absolutely love, and when they get to us, their head is totally confused because they don't know how to reach this ideal, which is quite frankly unachievable.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. A lot of the time when I work with new clients, potentially they may have seen 2 or 3 trainers before me. That's pretty typical unless I'm working with them from puppyhood. So if a dog comes to me around anywhere from a year to 3 years of age, usually it's because there's a problem and they have already seen 2 or 3 trainers before me. Now, in some instances, the trainer that they've seen has been too harsh. Absolutely, that is still a thing. But more frequently, in the last couple of years, I would say that they've been to 2 or 3 extremist force free people. And either that or the client has potentially interpreted it wrong and taken it too far that way. Whereas the dogs do not have rules and boundaries. The dogs are okay with biting their handlers. The dogs are okay with ignoring their handlers. The dogs are okay with being rude. And that's not okay. And this is where we have to say we are doing a massive disservice to the owners and the dogs if we don't help them build a positive, strong relationship based on trust through clear communication. And clear communication requires rewarding the things we like and stopping the things that we don't like. It's as simple as that, really.
Let's be honest to everybody listening, though, right? We say it all the time. A dog is a predator. Don't forget it. Don't forget what it was built, what's genetically inside it to do. What happens to a dog's confidence and their behavior when they get no guidance at all? So when they come into you, what are you facing? They are bad, aren't they?
Yes, some of the dogs that I'm working with are really bad. And there are different spectrums of this. There are different sort of things that I'm seeing. So I'm seeing dogs where, because they're not getting clear leadership and guidance from their owners, or if you want to call yourself a caregiver, whatever, again, this is where terminology of these things has kind of blown up. But essentially, you own the dog. You bought the dog, or you homed the dog, you own the dog. Some of these dogs actually are suffering with anxiety issues, and because of that anxiety, they're reacting negatively, they're lashing out, they're showing frustration. There's all sorts of things happening that are not good for the dog and not good for the owner. Then you've got the dogs that the owners believe the dogs are jealous of their relationship with other people. But again, like very often, this isn't the case. The case is actually that the dog hasn't learned that this is where you are in this family, and we're here and you're there, and you listen to us for leadership and guidance. And this is the thing, leadership and guidance means the dog doesn't have to make poor decisions because we show the dog what's right and what's wrong. We build the dog up in the ways it needs to be built up. But equally, we can say to the dog, no, that's not your role. More and more dogs you're seeing with what's called reactivity. But reactivity, a reaction can be anything. It can be a fear reaction, it can be aggression, it can be frustration, it can be overexcitement, over arousal. There are so many things that come under the umbrella of reactivity. And we have to strip that word back and say, what actually is the dog's problem? To say a dog is reactive is not enough, and it doesn't help us get to the root cause and help that dog overcome those problems. Dogs that are not given structure, rules, boundaries, guidance, and leadership tend to be dogs with behavioural problems because they don't know how they should behave and live in this world. And I've just realised I've just blurted so much stuff at you there, Jo.
No, you haven't. And I think you've covered like what we're trying to get with this, because people might think, well, why are you having this conversation? And we've probably had it other years in different podcasts, but it's because the problem's not going away. The problem's actually getting worse.
Yeah.
And what's happening is, for example, Rex, when the fire's lit in our living room, Rex comes in and he stretches out in front of the fire and he's flat out in about 3 seconds, right? He just knows, he knows the deal. He knows we're all going in there, fire's in, we're probably going to chill, we're going to watch TV, he's going to have a kip. Arthur will settle, but it takes him time as it would, he's 10 months old, to get it. He'll come and he'll try his luck again on the sofa. And I literally, I will gently grab hold of his collar and I say no, and I make him get him back down. And you'll have to do that maybe 2 or 3 times before he's, it's not going to work tonight either. And then he'll go and he'll lay down by Rex and he's flat out as well. But of all the times I've shown him, he is still young enough to try his luck. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's consistency is so important, but also the fact that we need to understand they are going to keep trying their luck. So we have to constantly correct in a really kind and gentle way. Keep trying, but you're never going to win on it. This is the deal.
Yeah, and unless a dog is in pain, any owner or handler, or whatever you want to call yourselves, should be able to physically hold or restrain their dog kindly and fairly for the right reasons. When I see dogs that have issues with being held or stroked that are not in pain, so I'm not talking about dogs that are in pain here, I'm talking about dogs who don't like it because they don't want to be told they can't do something, or they don't want to be restrained from doing the thing they want to do that they're not supposed to be doing. And dogs who have an issue with their owners touching their collar, for me, this is always quite a red flag, because it's like, that shouldn't be a problem. From day one, when I'm raising a puppy and what I teach my clients to do with their puppies, that dog has to be accepting of being held by the collar, of feeling lead pressure. Like, we talk so much about teaching dogs to walk on a loose lead, but we also have to teach dogs how to respond to pressure. And pressure from you should not mean fight back. It should mean I'm guiding you, I'm leading you, I'm giving you direction. Dogs should be okay with that. Dogs should be fine with their owners holding them, touching them, grooming them, for so many reasons. I speak to personally so many vets and so many groomers who cannot get hands on these dogs, and neither can the owners. And it is not because of fear, and it is not because of pain. It's because the dog is saying, I don't want you to. And that's literally the mentality of the dog, is no, I don't want you to. And you try to, and the dog is happy to lash out. That's not okay. Now, if you think back 20, 30 years ago, Jo, did we see this like this? No, we absolutely didn't. We did not see dogs using their teeth on their owners to say, no, I don't think so. This was not a thing we were seeing.
I had never ever heard of an aggressive spaniel personally until about 4 years ago, and I was really shocked. Somebody was saying to me about the spaniel biting, and I was like, a spaniel biting? And I was like, I just don't get it. I've just not seen it. But now, 4 years on, more spaniels are biting, more Labradors are biting, more dogs in general are biting. And the reality of it being, we have to look and say, okay, what's changed and what hasn't? and why the difference. Where we are
Yeah.
seeing well-behaved dogs, how are they trained? And not dogs that are scared, because I think where there is like harsh and abusive behavior, you can tell that dog is scared. Everything about them says, I'm scared. I'm doing it because I'm scared. Not because I want to, I'm doing it because I'm scared. Then you
Yes.
see the set where the dog's just really chilled and quite happy to go along with what their owner wants. And then we've got this new set, and I will say it's a new set, where the dog's, well, to be fair, he's probably as near to being a wild dog that you can get while still being owned by somebody, because they make every single rule for themselves.
Yeah, it's really scary. And I think the thing is, there is a time and a place for everything in working with a dog. Like, absolutely, there is. In the past, we've talked on other podcasts about things like consent-based training and whether or not we should be giving dogs choice. There is a time and a place where we can allow our dogs to make choices. 100%, that's the case. But I think, again, this is where things get taken out of context. And it's, oh, right, so we have to give the dog's choice. Well, the dog's choosing that it doesn't want to recall. The dog's choosing that it doesn't want to load back into the car. The dog's choosing that it doesn't want to have its lead put on. All of these things, they are not things dogs should be given choices over. Where I give my dogs a choice on things is where it's, I don't know, I'm just even trying to think of an example now, and I know that I do, but I think it's because the majority of the time I don't even have to think about that because my dogs learn through life. Okay, good example, Jeannie. Okay, Jeannie, really good example. So obviously, for anyone that doesn't know, she's at 2 at the end of November. She went lame from around about 6 to 7 months. Had intermittent lameness a little bit before that, but was properly lame from around 7 months. She was going through her second fear phase at the time that she got diagnosed with elbow dysplasia. Now, she could not make a choice about being examined by the vet, being crated for rest after surgery. All of those things, there was no option on that. It had to be done. Now, if I hadn't, when she was a puppy, insisted on crate training her, because one of the reasons that I'm a big advocate for crate training is because if your dog gets an incident, accident, illness and needs to be on crate rest, your dog's going to have to be okay with being in a crate. If your dog has to stay in the vets, they are in a crate. So when people are, oh no, I feel really bad putting him in a crate. Okay, so you feel bad putting him through a little tiny bit of stress or pressure now that potentially could save him later on when it's required, and you haven't put that effort in. She luckily had been crate trained, had done this, had done that. We had taught her to be restrained. We had taught her to be okay with lead pressure. We'd taught her to be okay with a collar hold. All of those things were her salvation when she needed to be examined by multiple vets and specialists and have surgery and then have checkups post-surgery and then see a physiotherapist and then see all the people that were then putting hands on her. That could have been a massive issue if we hadn't put the effort into that, and if we had gone down the route of, oh well, she's not that sort of dog, she's a little bit timid, she's a little bit this. How on earth would we have helped her come through? How on earth would we have done that? And because she was obviously having a second fear phase, it was really difficult, and she did develop a fear of people. Now, you wouldn't even know that now. So months on from that, she's gone from a dog who was terrified of people, and I mean terrified, and we had fear aggressive barking, we had hiding. She couldn't, if people came to our house, she did not want to meet them. Now she loves people, absolutely loves them. The odd person she woo when she first sees them if they catch her off guard, and we just say, leave it. That tells her you're not allowed to behave that way. I'm not going to force you into a situation. So this is a little bit where that choice comes in. At that point, if she doesn't want to meet a person, there's no pressure from me to meet the person. But barking at the person, that's off the table. That's not allowed. So I'm setting rules and boundaries, then giving her a choice that is an optional one. And through that, Now, when people come in, she wants to pick up a toy, she takes them the toy, she wants to sit with them, she wants to cuddle them, she loves the vet now. And that's just because we have given her leadership, clear rules, clear boundaries. We have given her choice where choice is acceptable, but we've also taught her what's appropriate and what isn't. And I could not have done any of that without consequence for actions, good and bad. It wouldn't have been possible.
Do you think, and I think this is probably the critical element of it, am I being kind or am I being permissive? Like, I'll be kind all day, especially to like a young pup knows nothing. They need loads of time to learn things. I'm probably quicker to say to Rex if I ever have to, but, and that's probably my entire correction, but, and he's like, okay. But with the pup, I've got way more time. I'm genuinely 100% kind to him. I love him to death. That does not mean I am permissive of him being a total bumhole.
Bumhole. Yeah, no, absolutely that. Absolutely that. It's absolutely true. And I think we've brought to the forefront so much over the years, and it's right to do. Like, I talk a lot about pain and behavior and how we have to consider that. We have to consider underlying health issues. We have to consider pain. We have to consider genetics. There are so many things that, yes, we should consider, but they shouldn't be then taken as excuses to allow bad behavior and to let things get out of control with dogs and end up with potentially dangerous dogs. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think if you've been like on estates or if you've been around lots of gun dogs, because that's what we're pretty much specifically talking about in what we do, is if you've been around them, you've got a good idea what they look like when it's done well. So
Mm,
you know that what you're doing is leading to a dog that has the best life. So you
yeah.
can come at it with this almost focus because you know where you're going. But if you've never seen what that looks like for a spaniel or a lab or a setter or a HPR or whatever, then it must be incredibly hard and it must be really difficult to decide, how do I put safety first? How do I put my sanity first? Because those things have got to be ticked off, haven't they? Is my dog
Yeah.
safe? Is there a chance that we are going to stay sane through this? Because we keep talking about it. The reality of it is, these are the dogs that end up in rescue because people just cannot cope with them. If I didn't know what's on the other side of my training of Arthur as he eats the mat or grabs something else he shouldn't for the 500th time, then I would probably think, oh my God, do I want this dog in my life? At the moment, he's a proper melon, but I know what's the other side. So I think that's important, isn't it? Is for people to not be
Yeah.
given these ideas of a force-free dog. This, if we go back to that definition, apparently force-free trainers are saying, I trained this dog without getting involved in anything really. If we go back to that definition, we never corrected them. We'll go back to it. I never applied physical pressure to this dog. I gave them no verbal corrections, no moments of interruption that could feel aversive to them. That's what I did because that's what the definition says. I call cow poop because you didn't get that dog to that well behaved without doing any of those things.
Yeah, and I think this is it. And we're talking about high drive dogs here as well. And I'm gonna be honest, like, over the years, when I look back, I've been doing this professionally for nearly 10 years now, which is a long time. I can honestly say in all of that time, there's only been genuinely a handful of dogs, because I work predominantly with gun dogs, which are high drive dogs. They have predatory drive. They're dogs that want to do a job. They need mental stimulation. They need exercise. They need breed fulfillment. There's only been a handful of those dogs where I could probably look back and think, do you know what? I almost could have trained that dog force free, almost, because they were so biddable and so just super sweet. And so I just want to do everything right. That is not commonplace. That is not normal. Most of the dogs that I work with are really high drive and they have their own ideas of what they want to do. That is for sure a fact.
Yeah, but even the minute you put a slip lead on those perfectly biddable dogs, you broke the rules of force free.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yes, exactly that. So
So,
yes, so you
like, this is the
exactly.
bit. This is the bit for me where, just like you, even though I'm not a trainer, I still get the incredibly sad emails, right? The people stand face to face with you and tell you what horrific time they've had with their dog, and that must be so heartbreaking for you, especially then when they won't follow your guidance, where you're like, I can fix this, and they're like, but we want to be force free. And then that's
It's
just nuts.
tough.
And then
It's
I'm dealing with them from a different position because I'm like, I can tell you what will work, but I can't help you do it. You've got to make the decisions yourself. And the thing that sort of hits me in the gut is I see in the emails the instinct kicks in. They write a sentence like, "Oh, well, maybe I thought I could do this," but the trainer said, "Do it," and I'm like, "Ah, trust your instinct. Your instinct is right.
yeah,
You can tell
yeah,
the dog no." And
yeah,
for me, because I'm not a trainer, I'm not going to say, "Well, I'm telling you this is what you should do," and I don't think anybody should really do that as a trainer. But what I'm trying to say is, they put their own thoughts, their own choices, their own experience, their own knowledge of life to the back burner and just think, oh, because I'm paying this person and they say force free is the way because I want to be kind to my dog, that my own thoughts now no longer exist.
yeah. No, exactly. And I think I say to people all the time, your gut will tell you if it feels right or feels wrong. Your gut will tell you. And if something's not working, what do they say? The definition of madness is to keep doing something and what, how does that saying go, Joe? Can't
I
remember.
think it says the definition of madness is doing the same thing and expecting a
Yes,
different outcome.
yes, correct. Yes. So I see this happening, and I see this where this problem has been going on for 6 months, a year and a half, and they're being told along the lines of training the dog, it's like a really long thing. No, okay, this again is wrong. This is misinformation. You can change behavior pretty quickly, and you don't have to be harsh to do that. Okay, you don't. And yes, training a gun dog from puppyhood to working on a shoot can take a couple of years, but it shouldn't take a couple of years to tell a dog to knock it off when they're behaving inappropriately. That can be done in 10 minutes or less, just like that. And that doesn't mean being harsh. And this is what people will tell you. People will tell you that to do it quickly, you've got to go in really hard. That's absolutely not true. And I do it all the time. I do it all the time. I'm working with a dog at the minute. I'll be really honest about this. I nearly didn't take the case on, because I was like, this is not something I've done before. This is hardcore. Obviously, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but this absolutely gorgeous dog, stunning Springer Spaniel, absolutely stunning, had a lot of health concerns. And as a result of that, and his high prey drive, over arousal, and his health, basically hadn't left the house for a couple of years. A couple of years he hasn't left the house. Previous trainers had said he had to stay below threshold, not get over aroused. So all this dog's life was scatter feeding in the garden. This spaniel, working line spaniel life was for 2 years scatter feeding in the garden. No training. I've had 2 sessions with this dog at home, and we have applied lots of positive reinforcements. We've done lots of teaching, we've done lots of play, we've done lots of using food from our hand to create I'm where the rewards come from. We've stopped scatter feeding, we've stopped all this other stuff that was told to do. I'm so excited, but equally terrified, because that dog is now at a point when his arousal levels get to the peak where then he basically has a fit. I can, with punishment that is not harsh and not cruel, tell him to stop, bring his arousal levels down. We have had him on a slip lead now. He's learning to walk nicely. He's taking food, and he's coming up to my field in a few weeks' time for his first gun dog 1-to-1. And this is a dog that has not left the house or his garden for 2 years. And that is nuts, right? It is nuts.
See, this is why, like, these podcast episodes are so important because we have to not fight with force free, but we
No,
have to keep on counteracting the argument. Because if we don't keep counteracting, the argument isn't an argument, it's a one-sided conversation that always wins. And my problem with it is this, right? We do not want to go where dog training used to be. Like, the
no.
thing with Arthur jumping up on the sofa or putting his paws up on the sofa, he doesn't actually try to get up. He's just trying to put his paws up. My dad would have probably fixed that far quicker than I am because he would have probably been a little bit more rough with him and made it real clear, your paws go up on the settee, you were going to know about it. That's the way dad trained. It's not the right way to train, but that's the way he trained. But Arthur would have probably learnt it quicker. My way is taking a bit longer, but that's what it comes back to. Well, you just said of it's actually my choice how long it takes me to train
Yeah,
Arthur this. I want him to know that it's just easier not to get up there because he's going to be like gently guided back down. And I think this is what we're trying to say to people. If I go force free, what do I do when his front legs are on? Because I can't do anything about it, and I'm guaranteeing you his behind legs are coming any minute after. He literally puts his front paws on, looks at me as if saying, "What's the answer here? Is she going to tell me back down, or can I creep up behind? What can I do?" So we've got to keep on saying to people, you can tell the dog no. You can be kind by being corrective. Like again, it's exactly what you just said there. This dog has now had 2 years of not being allowed out of the garden, probably blowing his mind, like literally blowing his own mind with how, and I'm sure the owners at the time, because this is what we see all the time, the owners are doing the best they can at the time with the knowledge they have. They desperately want to do nothing more than the best they can for their dog. But that dog hasn't had the best life for a working spaniel. So
no.
had we just got him where he needed to be and just taught him the things he needed to know, his going over threshold would probably never have been that dramatic because he would have known very quickly these are the boundaries.
Yeah, which is what we're teaching him now. They've lived in their house separated for it must be about 8 months now because of his high prey drive, and they have cats as well. And so they've had to separate the house. Now we're working on that as well. We're working on a lot of stuff. Is it going to be perfect? No. Is there going to be mistakes? Yes. Is the dog having a better life? Absolutely, yes. We are giving the dog a life now and a purpose. And that doesn't mean things won't go wrong, but it would have been absolutely wrong for him to live the rest of his life being scatterfed in the garden. That would have been awful. How is that fair to a working line spaniel? Absolutely not. And I think this is where we have to kind of educate. And it goes the same with fear. Goes the same with fear with Indy. After Indy was attacked and had her breakdown, became sound sensitive. I used a solid leave command to teach her when she was acting inappropriately, which gave me a window of opening to say, this is how you can behave. And got to the point where she was cool with all noises, even fireworks. And I have video footage of her in my garden playing fetch. Literally, not a formal retrieve, playing fetch with fireworks going off. And this was a dog that I got told would have no quality of life. And now I'm guaranteeing you now, if I hadn't put rules and boundaries in place with her, no amount of just positive reinforcement would have fixed her problems. None.
We have still, like, we taught Switch Off and Settle Down in September.
Yeah.
We still have emails probably once a day of somebody going, thank you so much, because like it's made the difference. And being able to use a leave, making the difference. Being able to keep my dog in their bubble around me, making the difference. Like, we don't talk about and do this stuff like for fun. We do it because we know it makes a difference. And like, we really want people to start questioning whether they like brat dog is being a brat dog, don't we? We just want them to look at it and go, is this the right way for you, or are you just being spoilt now? And we can identify it quite quickly in a child. We can go, that child is spoilt. And then we can quite easily ignore it in a dog, which I find quite interesting in itself. I don't know if we ignore it in cats. If cats are quite rough and vicious and claws, I think people are probably stricter with a cat. But anyway, if you have cats, let me know. Are we like force-free in cats? I'm not really sure. Because cats still have boundaries, like they still
Yeah.
exist. Okay, they go out and break lots.
Cats put a lot of boundaries in place as well, don't they? They do a lot of
Yeah,
swat.
yeah, cats are like, you may touch me now, you may not touch me.
Right, exactly. But that is exactly it. And I mean, I don't know. The thing is, at the end of the day, for me, the important thing about this conversation is education. Like, I have nothing about me makes me want to fall out with people and have fights. And if somebody comes to me and they want to do things the longer way, I'll work with them, but I'll be honest with them and be like, this is going to be a limitation. I'm really honest about it. I'll be like, we could stop that now. We can do it this way and it might take 6 months. We can do it that way. You're never going to do it. Or we can stop it now. The choice is yours. But that's the thing. It's about being honest and truthful and not selling a lie and not trying to pretend. And I think where it goes really wrong is when you've got people saying that by telling a dog no, you're going to damage the relationship with your dog. That gets told all the time. And when people are told by trainers, oh no, punishment will make your dog anxious and fearful and it will create this and it will create that. And that's all just lies. That is just lies. Abuse will do that. Correction won't. Abuse will, correction won't. And I think we just need to really get this crystal clear for people.
So really, this whole conversation is just going to come back to something simple, listeners. We all want to train with kindness, but we also live in the real world with real dogs who sometimes lose their tiny little puppy minds and make you want to think seriously about why you chose another puppy. Arthur does it, Jeannie did it, I'm sure Indy did it, I'm sure
Yeah.
Rex did it, like they all do it. And at the beginning, we just really need to be there for them. All of our dogs have done it, and that's where our training boundaries really sits. It's not a label, it's not about being perfect, it's about listening to your gut and going with your gut. Step in, guide them, steady them, help them feel safe again. Think of it, even if we use the example of teaching someone to drive. You do not let a brand new learner do whatever they want, because the chances are it's going to end really badly for them and potentially for you. So your dog is that learner plate. Obviously we can't stick one on them, but it would help us if we did. So if anything today has made you think a bit and then think a little bit like, I'm not doing it wrong by telling them no, I hope that's really been helpful to you. This is the point. You are absolutely allowed to trust yourself. Claire has just told you that. Trust your instincts on it. What does the dog need? What doesn't the dog need? And you are absolutely allowed to set boundaries. I hope you all enjoyed Found It Fetched It this week, and we will be back with you in a fortnight for your next episode.